Evening. Welcome to another edition of Purposeful Leadership. I am Maria Presentin. I'm delighted today to have Elaine Grundy on our show today. Welcome, Elaine. We have also Marina Nina, who is the CEO of Radio Works, and thanks to her, we've got this show running. Before I introduce Elaine, I wanted to give you a little bit of a background in terms of why I'm bringing Elaine to the show. It's really, really purposeful. I have spoken to Marina for a couple of times, and I decided, and she thought it was a good idea, for me to bringing a few shows with the concept of self-leadership. And so, we're always trying to help others. We're always trying to serve others, whether it's our clients, whether it's our families, whether it's, people that we care for, whether it's, colleagues that we work with in the organizations. We're always thinking about others first. And what about us? So self-leadership is really something that is at the core of our existence. We can only love and serve others if we love and serve ourselves first. Now, I'm going to be thinking about in a few series how we're going to be bringing some speakers on self-leadership, and it could be in terms of, gurus that have written about self-leadership books, self-help books, have done papers or speeches on that, and it could be, something that is more on the internal workings. And I decided to bring Elaine, and I was very grateful that Elaine said yes to me, because Elaine is a very powerful lady that I have the greatest respect for. She is a master Reiki teacher and my teacher. I've learned Reiki from her for the past 20 years. She's amazing. And so before we move on, let me just introduce her formally. Elaine is a Reiki teacher of 20 years with a background in corporate training and marketing. She founded the Reiki Centre in Singapore in 2007 to focus on high-quality Reiki education. And in the past 10 years has grown the organization to over 15 teachers, forming the biggest Reiki school in Singapore, supporting a huge Reiki community with gatherings, resources, and ongoing education. Elaine is author of Reiki Pure and Simple, a down-to-earth and accessible introduction to Reiki. Over the years, she has traveled and taught Reiki all over the world, helping thousands of people learn the gentle art of self-healing through Reiki. Now, with that powerful introduction, you can imagine how great this lady is already. So, Elaine, welcome to the show. Thank you for being in the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Now I feel quite scared to answer all these questions.
No need to be scared. No need to be scared. We're kind of like in this radio show, we're kind of like in a big family, the world family. We're kind of like the citizen of the world, right, Marina? So yeah. So everybody is learning from each other, and it's really exciting to have you on board today, because I know a lot about Elaine, and I learned from Elaine. I've been learning from Elaine for over the past few years already, the 10 years that I've been in Singapore. And she is the ultimate self-leader, because, all of us go through stuff. And we're always trying to support and make it work in our days. But then she really taught me how to be a self-leader. She's one of the biggest masters in self-leader, because she really teaches us to take care of themselves. And I'd really like to know more about Elaine. So Elaine is this big, powerful Reiki master and ex-corporate leader. But who is Elaine beyond that fantastic resume? Who are you, Elaine? Tell us.
Well, to be honest, probably I is always been on my own self-development. So it's always been on what do I feel empowers me? What do I feel I want to do? So I am quite prolific in terms of writing and teaching, and it comes out of me really from a place of what I don't know what I want to share. And the fact that people actually want to come and listen is, to me, so often a surprise.
That's wonderful.
But it's also just, it's very, it's a very lovely thing to be able to share something that works for you. And the fact that it works for others as well is just such a wonderful expression of that. So I know when I was younger, I used to put a lot of focus on the CV and how it looked and what I was doing, and that kind of leadership drive, I think has always been there from a really young age. You know, I remember when I was 10, I was like milk monitor, and I was like, yes, I made it, milk monitor. I'm in charge of the milk. And that kind of tendency, I think, to be a little bit bossy and a little bit opinionated, can drive people mental, but I think is quite important in terms of finding your voice.
Yeah.
So often it's like what I teach, what I write, what I blog about, it tends to really be an extension of myself. And so the CV kind of builds itself around that. I guess it's in some ways as the result of what I do.
Well, you're a very driven person, and that's what's got you to where you are today. And, you know, the great thing about it is I am personally very glad that you've decided to go into that path, because otherwise I don't think we would have met. The other thing is, you know, is what you said, you know, people really want to learn from you. What I love about you, Elaine, is that you're very humble about what you have to share. And you make it very open to everybody, and you make sure that everybody meets you on the content that you have to share where they are. And so people resonate with you very quickly, don't you think?
Hopefully I do get a lot of glazed-eyed looks, I have to say, you know, when people kind of stare at me like I'm completely bonkers, and then I do kind of rein it in and try and find languaging that works. But I think also one of the key things is really deeply listening. Like if I'm really deeply listening to somebody, then I kind of know where they're at, and then you can respond from that very open space. So it's not like I'm just throwing my stuff at them. It's really listening to what it is they want or need or are looking for, and then responding from that place. And so then, you know, sometimes you miss, but oftentimes if you're meeting people at that level, then they get what they need, and that's kind of all you're there for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to those, and obviously her bio didn't really say that, but to those that don't know, Elaine is a fantastic coach. In fact, Elaine did come from coaching for a while. That's why her listening skills are really powerful. So I'm not surprised about that. But Elaine, what were the experiences, different types of wisdom did you accumulate to get to this line of work in Reiki?
Well, to be honest, it was a hobby of mine for a decade. So I carried on doing my corporate marketing and leadership and training. And Reiki really was one of those things that I was doing on weekends, and I wasn't doing it that regularly. But I really enjoyed it. And I found that it really helped my corporate work as well, because when you're mindful on the weekends, you go back into the corporate environment on a Monday, and you're still carrying that kind of mindfulness and that gratitude with you. And I noticed it was helping a lot. So I was kind of doing that for many years. And then really it was when I had children. And then it was like, okay, now it's too full. So you've got corporate, you've got Reiki on the weekends, and you've got kids. And I think I was also at the point where I was realizing that my Reiki and the teaching of Reiki was more fulfilling to me than the corporate world. So to be able to drop that part of it and to take care of the kids and to do the Reiki and expand the Reiki then, because then I had much more time, was kind of where it went to. But it was a very organic growth, you know. It wasn't one of those things where I was like, right, that's it, I'm dumping this and I'm moving into this. It was right. Yeah, it just seemed like a very natural, organic growth from one thing moving into the other, and was very seamless in that sense.
And you've made it an extremely successful business today in Singapore. And so really congratulations to that. Before we continue, we've been talking about Reiki for quite a bit. So we would probably want to get, Reiki today worldwide is quite pervasive in the sense that it's, everybody learns it, and some people even teach it. And so it's really mainstream. But for those of the audience that doesn't really know what Reiki is, in a short few sentences, could you explain what Reiki really is?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's a balancing technique, and you could say it's an energy technique. So often, when I say the word energy, then everyone starts rolling their eyes. But essentially, it's a holistic therapy, I guess, and it originates from Japan. It's been around for over 100 years, and its spread has been very rapid and mainstream. And I think partly because when you learn it, you learn how to do it for yourself. So it's not like I have to go and get Reiki from someone else. When I learn Reiki for myself, I am essentially bringing a self-healing modality back into my household to help myself and my friends and my family. And when I say help, it's literally just kind of like putting your hands on somebody to help them balance their system, or putting your hands on yourself, most importantly, to help you balance your own system. Not to get into too many technical details, it literally is as simple as that. So it's a form of mindfulness meditation, but it also feels like there's a kind of growth in your own energy as well, if we look at energy as something, feeling good or feeling stressful or calm.
Right. I wanted to ask Marina, you're based in the UK and obviously traveling around quite a bit in Europe. Have you met a lot of Reiki masters or teachers? Are people talking about Reiki in Europe?
For very first time on somebody introduced herself saying, I'm a Reiki master. I was looking at her thinking, what's that? When I said it, what was that? And she smiled so kindly and she said, that's you. I said, really?
Yeah.
So I really, Elaine, I really believe that perception is one of the things that we are not taught in school. So what I mean to that is we learn everything. We learn about everyone. And yet nobody teaches us about us. I mean, I got 3 degrees, and I'm sure people listening, they went through a lot of testing times, and they sat so many tests along the way. And actually, we are never asked when we are sitting on an exam, what do you know about yourself? And it's the perception that each individual could become a follower instead of becoming a leader, a teacher. And personally, I think, because I'm an old-fashioned kind of person, I believe that the same way now we talk about well-being and lifestyle and balance and harmony in our lives, it's basically living the life my grandmother used to live. The same way, becoming your inner leader and being trusting yourself, getting to the point where you see yourself, you trust yourself, you become very, how should I put this, curious about yourself. So you want to learn who you are. It's getting to be now part of the emotional intelligence shift that is happening in the world. And yes, a lot of people are working within this industry, this specific topic, but because of the perception within our society in the Western countries, they are not confident enough to become their passion, to say, yes, I'm like you are saying, and I love this. You are so confident within your own right, because you discovered yourself. And once you discover yourself, you become aware that everybody could discover themselves. There is no need for to be on medication for decades. And recently it was a lot of noise in England about how drugs are good for depression and all that nonsense. And I'm thinking, really, do we really need to put our nation on medication? Do we really need that, or we need to awake and we need to become aware of who each one of us is? And respecting my own truth will help me respect other people's truth. It's almost like you cannot love anyone unless you love yourself. And you cannot know anything about anyone unless you know yourself, unless you become curious about who you truly are. And I just so love everything you said. And I believe that we are on a path to discovery, and the biggest discovery of all times is yourself. Not the self that people are talking about, but your inner self, the person that is sitting inside you. And that will enable you to discover and love and be kind to the person sitting next to you. But as long as you cannot be kind to yourself, as long as you cannot love yourself, as long as you don't know yourself, you are an ignorant when it comes to who you truly are. None of the political agenda or economics are going to happen. No progress is possible unless each one of us becomes aware of the existing abilities, of the existing emotions, and packaging that within your science, because I think it's an art and a science, what you are doing, is one thing that I truly believe should be taught in school.
Well, I certainly think that this idea of awareness is becoming more, and kind of like if we are aligned to our own inner journey and our own inner life force, then it becomes a lot easier to be compassionate with other people around us, because we're very comfortable. We don't have agendas. You know, we're not trying to get other people to do or think like us because we feel so insecure about our own points of view that we have to get everyone around us to agree with us. And I think this is one thing with Reiki. I mean, I come across a lot of people that don't understand Reiki and don't believe in Reiki, and they can say some fairly cynical things about it. But if you are happy in your own skin, then it kind of doesn't matter what other people think, because it's working for you. And actually, to go back to the depression, like some people maybe find the medication works, and so I'm all for that. But if you don't know yourself really deeply, then you're just going by what other people tell you to do, then I think you disempower yourself. And then I think then there are issues there, because you're not in charge of what you're putting into your body. And I think that's a really critical thing about merging wisdom with healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've actually worked with a lot of people, Elaine. Often enough I've seen you, and you said, oh, you've just come back from doing Reiki in a center or in the hospital or whatever, different places, and you've traveled for Reiki. What has this work of yours in Reiki impacted others? How has it impacted others so far? If you could just share a couple of stories.
Well, I think the key thing that personally I'm always driving towards is, how does this work impact me? So, and I know that sounds kind of very selfish, but it's very much about, if I'm doing this work because I love to share it and I love to do it, then whether or not it really helps others, doesn't help others, is less important. So then the sharing becomes because I want to share. I want to go into the hospital. I want to teach people if they want to come. And what I'm learning about my interactions with these people, and mainly it's about their courage. So you have somebody who is being diagnosed with cancer, for example, or somebody who's struggling with debilitating pain or arthritis, and you watch them take an inner journey with all of these added fears and overcome them. And it doesn't mean that they overcome the cancer. This is the thing people get, is really coming into your inner self means actually being able to navigate all of these difficulties and challenges we have in life, whether it's you're losing your job, or you're breaking up with a loved one, or whatever it is, facing somebody, loved one's death. These things happen, and illness happens. But if you can navigate it from a place of really inner stillness,
Hello?
About the whole time. Have I got lost?
Marina, the line isn't so good. Is there something that we could do?
It is perhaps due to the kind of connectivity you have at your end. So it is working fine here.
Okay, let's continue. That's fine. Thank you. So Elaine, you were saying?
So I was talking really more about when you were asking me about the impact.
Yes.
I think a lot of it is, it sounds like a roundabout, a kind of upside down way of saying it. But the fact that all of my clients and students show me the courage that impacts me so greatly, yeah. I think it's reflected back. It's kind of like, they overcome the most incredible difficulties and challenges, and they do it not with my help, in a sense, because all I'm doing is holding space and just offering Reiki, and Reiki is a self-healing modality. So they then go take it, and they then go and transform their own lives. Yeah. And this for me is always incredible. It's incredible to watch, and it's incredible to be part of. So I would actually say that others impact me probably much more than I impact them.
Oh, frankly. That's so sweet.
And it's just, it's just I feel an incredible honor to be part of everybody else's journey, and the fact that they are sharing it with me in that moment,
Yeah, I can genuinely hear that in your voice. I really sense that love coming out of you. This work that you do is extremely inner self driven. And it does bring out the intuition when a person practices Reiki. I know that because I do it, and you have a tendency to become more and more intuitive. And I think all of us are intuitive. It's just that with practice, you get more attuned to listening to your inner self. So when it comes to that type of aspect, if you could just give us some pointers, how is that related directly to self-leadership? Because I personally feel that that's completely related. What are your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I actually let go of all the. I used to be a great fan of SWOT analysis. Every single thing, I'd be like, okay, do I change my job? Let's do a SWOT analysis, threats,
right.
Strengths and weaknesses. And I noticed throughout my own personal journey, exactly as you've said, my intuition got stronger. And I don't think it's even stronger. I think my mind just got quieter, so I could listen to the wisdom within. Right. And the wisdom within is this remarkable process. It just knows the rhythm of your life flow. Right. And so there's a certain direction, and we know this, right? We know that there are certain directions. We may have been fighting it tooth and nail. I don't want to be fired, or I don't want this job, or I don't want to move country, or whatever it is. Yeah. But we know in our hearts, in our guts, this is the way it's going. Right. And we can either choose to work with it, or we choose to resist it. And in we're going this way or we're going that way. And I mean we, as in, because often it's not only about you, right? There's family, there's society, there's work perhaps that is moving in a certain direction, and the intuition shows you that direction. Then you're going to go, or am I going to resist it? And as we all know, if you resist anything, one, it persists, and two, it's very painful because of the suffering it creates, not only for you, but for all those around you.
Right.
And so the intuition is simply, I mean, the more and more I listen to it, the less and less.
Yeah. So, people are talking about mindfulness all the time nowadays. I mean, it's to the point where it's gone into corporate. And there are facilitators that teach mindfulness and all sorts of things. So there's this, like Marina was saying, there's this big shift of awareness that, hey, I'm not alone. I can't just live by myself. I can't just do things the way I want without collaborating and thinking about others and being mindful towards myself and towards others. How does Reiki support mindfulness?
Well, actually, I think it's very, very closely linked. Reiki for me taught me to meditate, and it taught me how to very naturally still my mind. And that's not something, it's not a tool or technique. It's simply by using self-Reiki, your mind naturally quietens down. And it's just one of those very miraculous, you have to try it to really understand where it goes. But that kind of mindfulness to me is built into Reiki. It's part of the process of doing the Reiki healing for yourself. And I think it's great. They're teaching mindfulness in schools now. My kids are learning mindfulness, and there's a lot more hope, I think, that we are going to be, in general, a more switched on society as we move forwards in terms of how much our asleepness, not only clearly, but also other living beings around us. Right. So I think this is a really important movement, but I say a but because I also see it moving into the way of a lot of these kind of fads as another tool. And I'm not sure that people really get the point of mindfulness as being a tool to inner knowing. And if all you're doing, then it just becomes another tool, and you are missing the kind of underlying value of what mindfulness is all about.
Yeah, and it feels to me that mindfulness is it's a lot more than just being still and quieting the mind, like you were saying. The mind is absolutely important. So you've got the mindset, you've got obviously that you need to practice with a skill set, but then it's really connecting to your inner heart. It's the heart set as well. So it gets to the point where you achieve inner peace, and then you can call it spirituality or self-development, whatever you call that, that's fine. But, let's say our audience are beginners in terms of wanting to discover themselves a little bit more. And they're really beginning in this journey of mindfulness or spirituality or whatever you call it. Where do you think they should begin?
Honestly, I would say begin with your own resonance. So, some of us are more physical. We like to go running. We like to go swimming. These are great mindfulness techniques, by the way. Anything that, or cycling. It's any way that you are getting into an activity that allows you to go into a flow space where you feel relaxed and you feel like you're not overthinking everything, yada, yada, yada in your head. And then for other people, it's more yoga, or really suits some people, but it doesn't suit everybody. So for me, it's almost like there's no point doing Zen meditation if you can't sit cross-legged on the floor for half an hour. I mean, because then you're just entering a talk. It's pointless to do that. But there are so many other ways that you can do meditation apart from sitting on the floor, you know? And so it's like, it's really finding your own personal approach. And it could be Reiki, it could be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be like a whole bunch of stuff that I personally teach. But I also, like, my husband doesn't do any of this stuff, but he goes and cycles for hours. And when we talk, it's like he gets the same benefit out of going cycling as I do sitting on a yoga mat. So it's not about the tool you choose, it's about what the tool is doing for you. So when you finish whatever activity you're doing and you feel like you are centered, then that's working for you. And so you just keep moving in that direction, and maybe you get interested as your heart centers and your mind quietens. You may then find yourself more capable of doing the more structured meditation or spiritual practice that we're more used to seeing.
So essentially what you're saying is really, you know, learn about what makes your own heart sing, what resonates with you, and kick off with that, and maybe we'll develop into doing some other things. So thinking about what the heart sings, then what makes your heart sing? What makes you happy?
Oh, for me personally, I'm actually very easy. Everything makes me happy, to be honest. I think when I'm being present, and that kind of does it for me. And I can be present pretty much doing anything, like on the toilet even, and I can be having a great time. So it's more...
So you're not a multitasker.
No, I'm not. You know, I'm useless at multitasking. It makes me stressed. And I don't find that I can bring full attention to it. So I want to bring full attention to everything I'm doing because it's so much more juicy, you know? It's like you just get into the process. And even things like cooking. It's like I love to cook. I love to chop vegetables and like feel the food and you know, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think when you get to these touch points where throughout the day, like you just have to bring your attention fully to something, whatever it is, and it brings you joy and it opens your heart and you feel alive. As cucumber ever, it makes the whole day wonderful. And then it doesn't really matter what you're doing, you know, whether you're doing something, you know, I think people spend far too much time. Am I doing something worthy enough? Am I making enough difference? And to me, it's not actually about that. If you align yourself to the moment, then your whole life takes care of itself. But if you're constantly busy in your mind, what do I need to do next? What's the next goal? What do I need to achieve? Blah, blah, blah. Then actually you miss your whole life, you know? And so that kind of overachieving, I've done it before. You know, I also racked up the degrees and I racked up the and it doesn't make me happy. So this makes me much happier. And so this is kind of the path that I've gone down, where it's almost like now I'm at the point where I'm looking at what doesn't make my heart sing, and let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Let's cut it off, right? You're laughing, Marina, because she's so right. I mean, I can imagine that many people listening to this are envious, because to have that realization, to have that self-realization,
but it's so
powerful.
You just have to, it's so easy. All you have to do, you do this next time, chop a cucumber and just marvel at the cucumber. It's so easy to do. And don't try and cut a cucumber while you're on your social media or watching TV or screaming at the kids.
You'll cut your finger. You'll cut your finger.
You know, Elaine and Maria, I was thinking many times people are asking me, how do I find my purpose? Because everybody is trending now to talk about your purpose and live your life on purpose. And so it's something almost like outside yourself, something like the best of people are doing. You can't, because you don't have a purpose. And I'm thinking, this is getting ridiculous now. This is to the point where I'm thinking, what? You are your purpose. That's your purpose. You know,
Yeah.
being, and I think that you nailed it, Elaine. You said something that I'm going to quote you if quote you if you don't mind. So you align yourself with the present moment, because there is no bigger gift in life than the present moment. Right now, we are talking about something that many people don't dare talk simply because it is almost like the best kept secret. And I feel that the present is called the present for a great reason. It is the greatest gift of life. And all I have right now is you and Maria. And I'm so grateful for this. And no, I cannot cut a cucumber right now. I don't care about anything else, but what you are saying, and I'm so enjoying this, because it is time now for people to dissolve all these excuses. I don't have a purpose because I don't know what my purpose is. That's an excuse. That's another excuse. And it's almost like people invented another word called mediocrity. And I really, really think that mediocrity doesn't exist. It's just an excuse. It's not a choice. And the same way, living the moment is a choice. You just need to gift yourself with that choice. You just need to understand that you are worth it. You deserve to have this moment entirely to yourself, and be selfish in that respect. Yes, I don't want to think of. I'm not a multitasker either, Elaine. So I understand that fully. Even if I try, I can't. It's total failure for me. So it's almost like one thing at a time, one moment at a time, is the only way you could connect with yourself. You could align yourself, like you said, with the present moment, and that's so beautiful. Thank you.
There are a lot of words nowadays that are, cliche and overrated. We're living in a dichotomy of the world, because the way I see it, I work for corporate, I do a lot of leadership development in organizations, and one thing that I actually see is there's this shift, this massive global shift that is unanimous, shifting towards the self, shifting towards being more mindful, shifting towards learning more about how to self-regulate and regulate the relationships with others. It's very positive. It's all extremely positive. It's shifting towards more spiritual work towards everyone. So that's very, very powerful and very positive. People want to be good. Essentially, what it's telling me is that people want to be good from the basis up, and that's amazing. We are, however, the dichotomy comes up when we are still in that world that is very results oriented. And there's nothing wrong with being results oriented and purpose oriented or goals oriented or vision oriented. It's just that to what extent are you sacrificing your goals and your results vis-a-vis what you have in the moment? So that's the big question that I usually ask my clients. It's what you said. Sorry, Elaine. It's how do you best be successful, but going with the flow. And when you don't feel like you're flowing, that's probably not the right direction. So when people use these cliche words like purpose, or purpose or vision or mission or goals, whatever, these are focus words. The biggest question that I ask them is, are you flowing in that direction? Because if you're not flowing, you're not being yourself, and you're not in that moment. Does that make sense? Because I see this dichotomy all the time, like day in, day out, with everybody that I deal with.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to make a really important distinction, because as you know, I achieve quite a lot. Like I love having goals, and I love to achieve things, write a book, write an article, put out a video. But the key difference, I think, is I do these goals because it feels juicy and fun.
Right.
And not because I think it's going to get me something. And I think this is it's like when you're living in people do have that, because I get asked this as well. It's like, oh, if I go with the flow, I'll just sit in front of the TV and watch daytime TV. And I'm like, well, go try it. I mean, the only people that sit in front of the TV are those that are totally disconnected from their inner self. And they're trying to distract themselves. But if you're totally connected, you will feel a life force in you that will not sit still and will not procrastinate, because there is so much fun stuff to do. So why would you waste it? You know, it's like this life force just comes out of you and want to achieve all this stuff. But the achievement is not to make you feel better about yourself or make you feel more important about yourself. It's actually just for the fun of it. And that is a very big difference. So when you start shifting your attention like this, you actually achieve a lot more, because you're no longer doing it for an agenda or right. You know, it's a completely different purpose. So you do it with joy, and you do it with a great deal of focus, and you get loads more done, or at least this is my experience. Like, I get loads more done when I'm doing it for fun, rather than when I'm doing it because I think it's going to make me look better in front of other people.
Well, absolutely. But that's why you're successful, because it really comes from your heart and in the way you enjoy the present moment. So there's so for those of you that are listening, it's really important to distinguish between going with the flow and being in your flow. So I think what Elaine was trying to explain is that when you're in your flow, in your zone, you're really enjoying yourself, and that's when you're really living the moment, your own moment. Yeah. So I know personally, because we're friends and we see each other every week, basically, because I go to your yoga classes and we meet each other and stuff like that. So I know that you're moving to the UK sometime this year. And so I was just wondering, what are your big plans? What's next for you?
That's a very good question. I have no idea.
Because you're living in the moment.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, just move first. I mean, it's literally like that for me. It's kind of like, okay, first of all, I'll just sell the house. Tick. Okay, now I'm just gonna, you know, it's like every moment, I'm wrapping up that moment, and I'm kind of, yeah, I have no idea, but there is a lot, like I feel it. I feel like there's a lot of movement and energy carrying me along. So I'm very trusting that there's going to be all kinds of fabulous things happening, but I just don't put attention to it. Yeah. It's just kind of like whatever life has in store for me, I'm going to find out soon enough.
Okay. So, knowing you, I just know that you're going to be amazing. And, now that you know Marina, hopefully, you'll get a chance to meet each other and be more acquainted with each other, and probably get opportunities to see how things could flow for you in the UK as well. But we definitely...
I have to say, for our listeners who've never been to Singapore, never been to London, for me personally, I think Singapore is the place I would move to. So I love London, and it's just the most amazing, it's my hometown, and it's the most amazing place in the entire world. But if I had a choice, if I get to that point in my life when I just make another choice, I would move to Singapore, because, Singapore is London on steroids. And this is my definition, very simple definition of Singapore. So I hope, Elaine, you won't be disappointed when moving to London. I hope you'll have an amazing time. And just remember that sometimes, regardless where you are, what really matters is you make the difference. It's not the place. This is something I learned from my grandmother. So as long as you make it your home, London, you'll have an amazing time here.
Yes, thank you.
And she will, because she knows London or the UK inside out. So Elaine, I wanted to ask you maybe a final question. You've been so successful as an entrepreneur the past 20 years, and you've grown so much, you've learned so much, you've taught so much. People look up to you all over the place. People fly over to Singapore to be taught by you. So you've got a massive amount of people that you impact. So I really wanted you to share a few tips, maybe 2 or 3 tips on, there are a lot of entrepreneurs and corporate leaders out there that are trying to be more mindful, more purposeful, more spiritual. What are some of these tips you could give them in guiding them into that direction?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is kind of the way that I do it. And we've been talking about all of these points, but it's really this idea of taking time to be still, to come into that inner wisdom that you have inside of you. And as we already said, whether it's running or cycling or yoga or meditation, it doesn't matter. But it's to have a regular process, a daily process where you are stopping all the chaos that goes on in our minds and actually taking time to be still. Because otherwise that deep intuition can't come up. It gets drowned in the noise. And then when that intuition starts coming up, that kind of life force or that life calling that is coming through you, then follow it. And that really is about trusting yourself, about trusting your intuition. And the big ideas are not ideas that other people like. So if you're doing this to please others, it's never going to work. And you talk to any entrepreneur or leader, they'll tell you this. Sometimes that intuitive next step means change. And those kind of changes usually kind of piss people off, frankly. But then part of that feedback loop is to also check your ego, because often we mistake our intuition for ego. And that's where the stillness comes back in, because the stillness will continue to guide you, whether it's ego or whether it's intuition. And this is something that takes time to kind of master, but it's well worth mastering. And part of that mastery is this inner mindfulness or this inner stillness that will start to define for you, okay, this is my ego or my agenda or my fears, and this is my truth. And then you always follow your truth.
So everybody, I hope you got that, those 3 points. It's really taking time to be still, follow your intuition. Once your intuition comes up, check your ego, because that's your barometer. That's really, really cool stuff. So, final question. If this was your last day of life, what would you do? What would you be doing?
Wow.
I love asking that question, because I get all sorts of answers.
Yeah, I'd be chopping cucumbers.
Yeah, I figured that much, knowing you.
No, for me, actually, it's really easy. I mean, the loved ones to me are the reason for being, and I would spend time with them, and I would, go and eat my favorite food, which is sushi and sashimi.
No diet anymore. That's fantastic.
Yeah. But it would still be pretty healthy, right? But I love, so I'd eat my favorite food, and I would just, have a kind of day where I'm just swimming or diving or doing all the stuff that I really love doing. That's, if it was my last day, that's what I would do for sure.
Oh, you're awesome, Elaine. I'm surely going to miss you, and I hope you come back again soon. You are coming back.
Don't worry. I'll be back. Yeah. I'll be back and forth. I'm going to be a bit of a nomad for a while.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, Elaine, thank you so much for being part of our show today. I'm so grateful. And thank you, Marina, as well, for contributing to the show. Well, audience, anytime you want, make sure that you tune in, and we've got great shows for you coming up the rest of the year. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you.